So in religious studies, you might do work on religious texts. You might do work on religious history. You might do work on religious behavior. All of those things can comprise research in religious studies. So that might involve reading a lot of books. It might involve going to archives. It might involve talking to people. It might involve attending events and analyzing them. It might involve a lot of different things depending on the kind of question you want to ask. So in religious studies, you might be looking at contemporary phenomena, contemporary events, contemporary beliefs, or you might be looking at things that happened hundreds or thousands of years ago. The first step you should take in studying religion is to ask an interesting question. What makes you curious? There are 2 or 3 things you should do to begin with. Number 1, and people diss this source all the time, Google it, right? Wikipedia it. Get some very basic understanding of what is on the top 10 pages on the web on this topic, because that will give you a sense of whether everyone has written or talked about it, or no one has written or talked about it. The second step is often to talk to a professor in the field that interests you, to check about your question, to help you refine your question. The third thing that you should do is learn what are the library databases that are in your field of study. In religious studies, very often we start with the American Theological Library Association, which is an old name for a religious studies website. But that is one of the best places to start looking for articles, books, and reviews on your topic. In religious studies in particular, it can be hard to distinguish between primary and secondary sources. Why? Because everybody has an opinion about religion, and now that we have the web, they like to post them everywhere. So you need to figure out which items are primary sources, sources that might give you an idea what religious people are saying, thinking, and doing, and which sources are secondary sources, that is, scholarly sources that comment in some kind of informed way on what people are saying, thinking, and doing. So that's one of the biggest challenges for religious studies that isn't always such a challenge in other disciplines. There are several dimensions to a good question. One of them is that it shouldn't be too big and it shouldn't be too small. This is sort of like the 3 bears. It needs to be just right. Also, you need to ask a question that fits the material you want to study. If you want to study the way gender is expressed in worship in a local mosque, for instance, you might not want to look primarily at the Quran, right? You need to ask what is actually going on when people are worshiping in this sacred space, right? So what the Quran says will be interesting to the paper, but it probably won't be at the center of the paper. So you need to make sure that your question fits your material well also. I heard a talk by Manya Brashear, who is the religion writer for the Chicago Tribune newspapers and has been for about 10 years. And she said that what drove her to do research projects in religion was realizing that she couldn't understand how to explain the news until she got more information, basic information on what religious groups thought and what their histories were and where they had come from geographically. These were very important for her just to understand how to present the news in Chicago. The value of doing an undergraduate research project, especially in religious studies, is that it tells you a little bit more about the world you're operating in. It gives you a deeper understanding of the people around you that may have seemed kind of one-dimensional to you. You'll understand things you didn't understand so well before.